Hello everyone. Are you able to hear me? Loud and clear? Good afternoon and thanks for inviting us for this session. And at the same time, thank you all for making it to grace the occasion. To start with, we have had two excellent presentations, both by my predecessors, talking about artificial intelligence as well as how these Indian cities will become futuristic with the embed of technologies. What we would like to cover in this particular session is taking the keyword of it and how we are going to enable especially the communication and media industry with the advent of applying this technology like for the benefit of making them as intelligent business. So here let me start with myself as introducing. My name is Surya. I lead the comms and media practice at Accenture Technology Centers. I have my colleague Govind also here. And the topic what we've chosen is the role of AI and RPA impacting the comms and media practice. So we will discuss on the couple of key opportunities that exist, especially from the telcos and broadcasting companies' perspective, and how they will be able to tap the technologies to have threefold advantage. One is, of course, to have the better customer experience, and second, to increase their revenue base, and third, of course, to improve the cost of operations. So we have structured this session to first talk on the basic definitions of AI and RPA, and then moving into giving the kind of market perspectives of how this AI business look like and what exactly the enterprises are looking for, and then covering a part of how do we decode AI and RPA, because there's a lot of complex background behind this. So how you'll be able to understand this and then get into applying to a specific practice. We took the comms and media as an example over here, and then how do you actually implement it to derive the benefits. So before getting into the definition part of it, I just want to know from the audience, how many of you have seen a Hollywood movie called The Imitation Game? Raise your hands. Very good. At least I could see a couple of hands going there. The second question is, how many of you have read the robotics series? It was published by Mir from Soviet, erstwhile Soviet, and then translated to Indian languages. Any hands? I could see very few. So why am I saying this? Let's connect the dots a bit later. But if you see the kind of technology, that is the only constant in the plane. We started with a lot of buzz on mainframes, if you all remember, maybe around 20, 30 years back, and then transition to client-server kind of technologies. And then we've seen the evolution of the internet, Web 2.0, and then again, the big data analytics, cloud, coming as a technology enablers. Now we are in the plane of talking about artificial intelligence, quantum computing is the next way. So what does it all mean? It all means the technologies will be ever evolving, and the technologies are here to stay for a period of time, impacting the lines of business. And it's imperative for the enterprises to embrace those changes and then get forward into their implementations. So the good news is AI, the artificial intelligence, has been given the status of the single most impacting technology. I think we've also seen a couple of other speakers talking about the importance of it and also mentioning about different market analysts. So that paves the way for the enterprises to invest to become like their intelligent business partners. Having said this, how do we define AI? Because there are a lot of definitions all around. But how do you really define as an artificial intelligence? It is basically a constellation of the technologies. which would help the smart machines behave like a human in terms of sensing, in terms of comprehending the data, in terms of analyzing the data, in terms of even taking the judgments on their own in some cases, in terms of even assisting the human to make a better judgment. But what are the technologies that comes with that? I think my earlier speakers have already talked about the line of technologies in natural language processing leading to cognitive agents and machine learning kind of algorithm approach for predictive models, deep learning and reinforced learning kind of technologies for the other applications. So all these are helping the enterprises to move in the direction thanks to all the pioneering efforts being put forward more than 50 to 60 years back, and then AI has moved from the labs to the reality, to the ground reality, where implementations. If you would have seen the Imitation Game, the movie, it's based on Alan Turing's life, who invented the Turing machine during the World War, and it's a mathematical abstraction model, and that's why he's considered to be the father of theoretical computer science and algorithmic design. Next, if you would have read the robotic series, it is an imagination, it's a science fiction by Isaac Asimov, a Russian scientist, a writer, who used for the first time the word called robot, and that has been derived from a word called robota. Robota is nothing but work in Russian language. He imagined how the robots and humans can coexist. It was way back, again 50, 60 years back. John McCarthy, who took the lead, and then he was the one actually who coined the word artificial intelligence. So thanks to all the pioneering effort, today AI is the single most technology that's going to impact the business. Let's quickly look at the market perspective. Some of you have shown the market cycles, especially the hype that's generated around the emerging technologies. Before getting there, what are the factors that are fueling the growth of AI? Why should we look at AI? We do understand that market has got a hype around it because of the technology changes, because of the kind of technology implications that AI can bring onto the table. But if you see the fundamental things, the first and foremost thing that we are seeing completely in a different model is the explosion of data. I think some of you have touched upon, especially in smart cities. What happens if there are so many number of devices, so many number of data that's flowing on networks? So what happens? How do you manage this data? And then is it meaningful data? Is it a structured data? So what are the kind of insights one will be able to bring out of this data? The good news is, while this data is exponentially growing, according to some reports, by I think 2025 it will be almost like 50 times from that of what is existing today. But do we have the sufficient data storage facilities, number one? And do we have the kind of cost of data storage affordable? The interesting and encouraging news is the cost of data storage is coming down almost like 50% on year. Storages are becoming cheaper. You will be able to accommodate all the kind of data explosion that's happening onto your storage devices. And today, if you look at maybe per GB kind of a cost, maybe around, hardly around 1 to 2 cents. And you look at maybe 1980, that figure would have been phenomenally high. Then what is the third factor that is helping AI to evolve? We looked at the data explosion, we looked at how I will be able to data for the meaningful insights. we looked at what is supporting mechanism so that okay to the stories. And the third one is how we'll be able to do the kind of computation on this particular data with the computational power that has been built in either through the cloud infrastructures or the cluster mechanism. I think some of my previous speakers have also talked about it. And the good part is the computing powers have grown up phenomenally, and then the cost of computing has dropped phenomenally. So if you see these kind of three phenomena that are driving today, they are helping the AI to thrive on this system. That's where it is facilitating the AI to evolve faster and faster. What's the proof? If you see the kind of AI startups that have happened in the last 2 years, especially in US, has gone up by 20 times. And I'm sure that would have happened even in India, especially in Hyderabad. At least I have met a couple of guys who have invested in AI. So that is the proof in the pudding. So with all this kind of evolution that's happening, if you look at the market, Gartner Hype Cycle of Emerging Technologies 2017 clearly calls out 3 technologies. One is artificial intelligence, second is digital platforms, third is virtual reality. But the first slot is always given to artificial intelligence because some of them are the combinational technologies, because the power of virtual reality when you mix with AI is going to be more and more phenomenal rather than a standalone technology. There are different technologies again within this, like artificial intelligence based machine learning, deep learning, and we also talked about a couple of applications like connected cars, autonomous driving. So those are the ones which are going to rule. So having seen this AI everywhere as a concept and understood the ecosystem in which AI is thriving upon, what does it mean for the enterprises? Market says there is a potential of almost close to 50 billion worth of business. But at the same time, 80% of prices, they are willing to invest, they are willing to adopt. So what does it mean? It means you will see more virtual workforce coming in. As you rightly said, it's a combination of man and machine at work. How does it help the enterprise? It will help in meeting one of their objectives of how they will improve their productivity and save on their operational costs. Second one, over 30% of the new sales that are happening on digital e-commerce are going to be enabled through AI. So how does it help an enterprise? They are not the laggards in the new technologies. Any enterprise which picks up this are going to see the uptrend in their revenue streams. That means it is solving the problem of going for the revenue growth by enablement to the new revenue channels. And more than 50% of the enterprises today, if they are spending on a lot of mobile applications, they are willing to put their money onto AI. So that way, they will be having the solution accelerators, and they will also be having cutting edge over their rivals. So having all put together, they are actually helping the, their own ecosystem of partners, their own ecosystem of business process, their own ecosystem of the market dynamics to be relevant in the market. So those are the kind of insights that comes out of the market data. Now let's spend a little bit of time on evolution of the intelligent business, especially for the enterprises. We have the foundation technologies which we all worked on almost 20, 30 years back in maintaining the kind of transaction level script-based automation and trying to eliminate all the kind of manual work to the extent possible. Then comes the revolution in robotic process automation, which I think Veena has also picked up, saying that most of the business process, wherever there is a human behind the business process, they will be mimicked by the virtual agents. And then there won't be any scope for any kind of a manual intervention, and everything can be automated. What is the advantage? Advantage is all the mundane tasks will be eliminated, and it results in a better productivity. It also results in a better cost savings. And now comes the virtual agents and analytics. Much of the machine learning part comes over here. Based on the kind of patterns that comes out of the data that has been analyzed, it provides the meaningful insights so that the proactive actions can be taken. That may be for a product catalog decision, or that may be for eliminating a network outage, or that might as well be for making some sort of a product buying decision. The last one is artificial intelligence with the self-learning systems. You also covered on the augmentation part of it. Not that entirely it can be automated, but still a judgment has to be taken, and these judgments have to be with a manual intervention. So that's where you go for the augmented kind of a reality. So what are the value levers? The value levers is on the table. It's in terms of the enhanced judgment, in terms of the kind of customer experience, and also in terms of the intelligent products, where we touched upon data, compute, and also the aspects of the ecosystem. So if an enterprise needs to become an intelligent, the way in which actually the enterprise can pick it up depends on the business process. You need to decode the business process where you are in. This is just a sample representation of one of it. So the enterprises need not have to use all the aspects of the AI, what I have shown earlier. Some of it may be through robotic process automation, some of it may be through the intelligent automation part of it, and some of it may comes through the augmentation part of it. Sometimes it may be a combination of all the three. It all depends on the business problem, what we are solving over there. So now, having seen these aspects, let's see now, how do we apply this maybe in some of the comms and media industry-specific use cases, where we have successfully implemented for some of our customers. The kind of key trends, if you look in the comms and media, is again digital giants, because a lot of competition with the OTT players. Most of the communication providers are becoming pipe givers. So Google's, Facebook's of the world, Netflix of the world are eating away a lot of pie. That means communication service providers to keep their revenue intact. How do they do it? That's a great challenge for them. And whether artificial intelligence and RPA will have a role to play there. Second aspect is again networks, network virtualization. Most of these networks are becoming now software driven. There's nothing like a huge investment that will be coming through in terms of network infrastructure. So they are becoming more and more programmable. Imagine a scenario where an enterprise on the fly, they need to go for a huge bandwidth to accommodate maybe their CEO address. So if there is a way in which there is an intelligent system which actually monitors the network bandwidth and then made the allocations, and also through self-provisioning system, that will be a wonderful tool and aid for the communication service providers. And third aspect is again the platform business models. Most of the telcos, I think some of you are talking about IoT also. They have rolled out their own IoT M3M platforms, and then extending the APIs to build applications so that the new business models will be built around it based on the API usage. In all these areas, artificial intelligence is going to play a bigger role. So let's see now a couple of use cases, especially because the comms and media industry is basically driven into three specific aspects. One is concept to market, second is lead to cash, and third is trouble to resolve. So now I will request Govind to talk about these use cases and the implementations.
Thanks, Surya. Before I start, can you raise your hands if you are from the telco or the media industry, just to see the audience, how many are from the specific industry? Okay, so I'll try to keep some generic points, but my focus is primarily on the communications industry and also covering the media as well. So the purpose of this slide is to highlight how the communication industry has to adopt very quickly on the intelligent automation concepts. The reason being, as you know, all the telcos across the world is going through a tremendous cost pressure, and they have to, I mean, India is no different as well, you already know that. So they have to, quickly adapt to a particular technology where they can reduce the cost that they are incurring in the operational side, and also they have to make sure that they don't go through a very big churn in the market, so that they stay afloat and they can make revenue out of that. This is not possible if they don't get into the space like digital and getting into the next steps of artificial intelligence and the robotic process automation. So that's where we combine all these and saying it's an intelligent business and automation. That's what it drives. So in the typical telco concepts, so you have the like the concept to market, the trouble to resolve, order to cash. These are some of the very standard processes. Even though certain things are generic for other markets as well. So what happens in an order to cash is like when you take an Indian scenario, pretty much applicable across the world as well. So you walk into a retail store, you get a SIM card and you put it in your phone, you make a call, and from that time till you get your first bill, or if you are on a prepay, when you do a recharge. So there are a lot of things that happens behind the scenes from the IT side of it, right, and also from the network side of it. So today, in the current market scenarios, most of the companies, the Western market as well as in the Indian, Airtel, pretty much different companies, the legacy systems, they have to, sustain by keeping the people to run the operations. But what happens over a period of time, that's exactly where they spend a lot of money in terms of how to make the systems up and run 24/7. At the same time to give us saving. So this is exactly where we are bringing the intelligent business. So take an examples of order to cash, where you have a lot of touch points like entering the data into the system, like order entry, and order goes through the complete the journey of provisioning and activation, and then finally getting into the billing system. So there are multiple touch points. So when there is a multiple touch point, there is a failure also possible. So what happens in the automation side is when there is a AI plus RPA based automation is brought in, so you have bots that are going to monitor this process and take corrective actions at the respective places. Starts from the data entry of orders all the way till the billing or even the bill run monitoring. So this is from the complete. So we have been doing this for some of our clients as well. So moving on to the network side, so let's say average cost of a network outage different across different operators in a given typical year on year. Okay, so it runs into billions of dollars. So one study says around like $20 billion. At least they lose in revenue because if the network goes down, and that all it's not just that the revenue that they lost, it's also the customer experience. That goes. We all human, right? So when my mobile doesn't work, I get annoyed. I'm sure everyone will have the same feel. So the telcos have the very stringent SLAs, at least 5 nines, or they have to make sure that everything is up and running. So there you have the network service assurance that comes into picture in terms of monitoring the network failures, network touch points, wherever there is a failure. And what happens in the current scenario is there is a predictive models. I mean, yesterday also we talked about, some of the speakers were talking, and today morning Veena and Surya, everyone talking about. So how this predictive model can be built into the system so that it can analyze the pattern of failures, and it can give the indication that before the failure occurs it can take a corrective action. And also there are other scenarios like the dynamic bandwidth management. So for example, if there is a examples like if there is a particular game happening in a location, let's say there's a cricket match happening, or maybe there is a event happening. So the chances of the call volumes that could go high during a specific location is also more. And these things, it's very difficult for a human to monitor on a from a time to time. So these bots are deployed to monitor on a real-time basis to dynamically handle things. So these are things which we see as we go into the next the generation like 5G. Now the virtualization is catching up, the SDN, NFV. So everywhere all these AI is going to be embedded. That's exactly what Surya was mentioning. AI everywhere is the theme. So you can't just differentiate, I want to do only here, or I want to do only here. It's not going to be like that. So AI is pretty much going to be an embedded thing that